Stalingrad, one of the bloodiest battles in human history. But instead of viewing it through maps, arrows, and casualty figures, let's look at Stalingrad from a different angle. The perspective of a single anonymous Red Army rifleman. Not a general, not a hero carved into history books. Just an ordinary infantryman stepping into a shattered city with everything he owned strapped to his body. Every weapon, every piece of clothing, every small personal item. Each one tells a story not of victory or strategy, but of survival, hardship, endurance, and quiet courage on the front lines of hell. At the center of the Soviet rifleman's loadout was the Mosin-Nagant M9130, the legendary three-line rifle. Rugged, simple, and kicking like a mule when fired. This rifle was the primary tool used to push invaders back from the banks of the Volga River. It could be buried in mud, frozen under snow, neglected for weeks, and still fire when the trigger was pulled. In Stalingrad, reliability mattered more than refinement. A single failure could mean death. Mounted to the rifle was a long needle-shaped socket bayonet, 17 inches of cold steel, designed for thrusting, not cutting. Russian doctrine summed it up bluntly: the bullet is a fool, the bayonet is a fine fellow. In the collapsed stairwells, dark hallways, and narrow cellars of Stalingrad, this bayonet was often the last thing an enemy ever saw. Here, combat wasn't measured in hundreds of meters. It was measured in steps. The SSH-40 steel helmet replaced earlier designs and became the unmistakable symbol of the Red Army soldier. Heavy, crude, unforgiving. Its thick steel shell offered protection not only from shrapnel, but from falling bricks and concrete as entire buildings collapsed around their defenders. In a city being destroyed block by block, the environment itself was a weapon. The M1935 Gymnastiorka tunic, a simple pullover tunic with a standing collar, durable, functional, and easy to repair. This was the early war look of the Red Army. The Chanel greatcoat. Made from thick, coarse gray-brown wool, the Chanel was more than clothing. It was a blanket, a bedroll, a shield against the wind. Heavy when wet, but its length and weight offered critical protection against the biting steppe cold. The Vatnik padded jacket. Cheap to produce and incredibly warm, the Vatnik saved countless lives when temperatures plunged. It gave Soviet soldiers a decisive advantage over German troops who lacked adequate winter gear. The Ushanka fur hat with earflaps tied up or lowered protected the chin, neck, and ears from frostbite. The pilot cap side cap was light and simple, worn mostly in warmer months and bearing the red star of the Soviet Union. Shatawati trousers loose at the hips and tight at the ankles allowed freedom of movement through rubble and ruins. Footwear was critical. Kirza boots, made from treated canvas due to leather shortages, were waterproof but smelled strongly of chemicals. Valenti felt boots, made of compressed wool, were prized beyond measure once winter truly set in, warm, silent, and life-saving. A simple canvas waist belt held everything together: ammunition pouches, grenades, and the entrenching tool. The Mishak rucksack was nothing more than a cloth sack with shoulder straps, but it carried rations, spare foot wraps, and personal belongings. Mosin-Nagant ammunition pouches held stripper clips of 7.62 by 54R rounds, allowing rapid reloads during intense fighting. This gear wasn't elegant. It didn't need to be. It worked. The F1 Lemon grenade was defensive, its heavy cast-iron body producing lethal shrapnel that often traveled farther than a man could throw. The RGD-33 was versatile but complex, requiring careful preparation under fire. The RPG-40 anti-tank grenade forced soldiers to approach enemy armor at terrifyingly close range. And then there was the Molotov cocktail, cheap, improvised, and terrifying. used to blind tank vision ports and choke engines in the urban maze of Stalingrad. Officially, it was a shovel. In reality, the MPL-50 entrenching tool became a brutal close combat weapon. Sharpened on both edges and perfectly balanced, it was deadly in trenches, stairwells, and dark rooms. Sometimes, the quietest weapon was the most feared. An aluminum canteen carried water, or tea, or vodka when available. A canvas cover provided minimal insulation against freezing. A kidney-shaped mess kit served as pot, pan, and plate. And a wooden spoon was essential, because in sub-zero temperatures, a metal spoon would instantly freeze to a soldier's lips. Gas mask bags were often repurposed to carry ammunition, food, or tobacco. Oil bottles and rifle cleaning kits were vital. Maintaining the rifle was a matter of discipline and survival. An individual dressing packet was the last defense against bleeding to death. Makhorka packets were harsh and strong, but it steadied nerves and lifted morale. Rolling papers were scarce, so soldiers used strips of Pravda or Red Star newspapers, literally smoking the news of the day. Matches were precious, constantly threatened by moisture and cold. Small comforts mattered more than ever. Foot wraps replaced socks, drying faster and preventing blisters when wrapped correctly. Three-fingered trigger mittens allowed soldiers to fire their rifles without exposing bare skin. And finally, the white camouflage cape. In blinding snowstorms, it allowed a Soviet soldier to disappear completely, to ambush, to strike, and then to vanish once more into the frozen ruins of Stalingrad. No speeches, no glory, just survival.